everyone, it's Amber from The Sensible Mama. I am here with Digital Charlie.
That's me, yep.
It's my husband. We're going to start doing more YouTube and podcast style content together when we can. Today, our kids are with my parents.
Whoop, whoop.
So we actually have some time to film and not be interrupted. So what I did is yesterday, I asked people on Instagram to just tell me what you might like to hear about for us to sit down and talk together. And overwhelmingly, the answer was people wanted to talk about your ADHD, your diagnosis, and kind of how things have changed for you since then. And then also talk about our marriage and how our marriage has kind of, baby, you can't cross your arms over your microphone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sensible mommy.
So they also wanted to know a little bit about how our marriage has changed and evolved since your diagnosis, and they had some questions for me about how I've been sort of changing. So we're going to get into all of that today. This episode is going to be all about basically being in a marriage where one person has ADHD and the other person, for all intents and purposes, is more or less neurotypical.
More or less.
More or less. I will get into that later. But before we get into I'm not segueing into an ad, don't worry. Before we get into all of that, first things first, a lot of people wanted to know, how was the first week of your new job?
Oh, yeah. So I started a new job last Friday. So it's been a full week and a day. And it's been amazing. Working for a public company. I can't disclose who it is yet, but they're large and they do things differently than what I'm accustomed to, because I've been in the entrepreneurial startup world for 15 years or so. And it's just nice to come on board with a company with vast resources. And it's kind of like a dream job because I get to be the mad scientist inside of the organization and invent things. And so I'm really jazzed up about that.
And that was something you were really worried about, was when you started looking for a job, you were worried about finding something that was going to let you innovate and not completely squash your productivity and your creativity and all of that.
Yeah, really important. Is it's a part of my life to have this creative, innovative process, and it's also part of a segue into ADHD and how better to utilize people with ADHD needing that fluidity, that I guess autonomy, and the rigid structure. Although it's good for a person with ADHD. You want to fight it and every step of the way. So this is a nice blend where the organization is structured, but they allow me to go ahead and just go ahead and do what you need to do. So I can hide in the lab and mess around and come out with stuff.
And by lab, he means the cloffice.
The clab.
The clab, aka the doom room. And recently I made a blog about this where Anna TikToking and Instagram. I've been all over the place talking about your ADHD. I'm sorry about that. But I made a post talking about the doom room. So do you want to real quick tell people like what a doom room is before I get into this story?
Yeah, don't organize, only move, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
or didn't organize, only moved.
Yeah. So you have the life of ADHD. You're not too organized, and you leave traces of your life all over the house. Tissues.
Charlie was here.
Yeah, it's all over the house, and you don't see it, right? So when you realize that your significant other is getting a little perturbed,
Pissy.
Yeah, you take it all and you scoop it all up and you put it in a box because you're going to organize it later. Well, that box turns into eventually 2 boxes, and then 2 boxes turn into a room. So we have a doom room, or we did have a doom room.
We did, yes. So, and the thing that I was talking about in my blog was I was talking about how he's had this doom room for the last year that we've lived here, and it's just his space that I have no jurisdiction over, which means out in this shared living space, I have the right to say, put that away. I don't want that there. That is messy. That is cluttered. Because even though I am neurotypical, I do have sensory issues, and I have major anxiety and like a little bit of like anxiety related compulsions. And so out in this space, we have an agreement that I am allowed to say, like, please pick that up, please go put that away. And if it doesn't happen, I will pick it up and I will make a decision of where it goes. And that doesn't always work out great for us. But the doom room is a place where Charlie can put all of his things that don't have a home. And I think that was really the first kind of concept for like a doom box or a doom drawer, which we expanded into a doom room, which is that people with ADHD have a hard time with things that don't have a natural home.
That's right. And what I do is I don't have things, right? I have papers and I have wires and I don't really have possessions. So I can probably put my world possessions within, a 3 by 3 foot box. It's really that small, just my books and stuff like that. But my footprint in the house is somehow immense, right? It's just somehow large. So I don't necessarily understand that, but having a doom room allows me to be myself, right? I can go in there and not have to worry. I can focus on what I need to do, not have to worry that I'm imposing on others, which is stressful for someone with ADHD. We know that we impose on people, and that's stressful.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to something we were talking about at breakfast this morning, which is that for me, as someone without ADHD, we assume, we'll get into a story about that in a little bit, but for me, I see a task as having a beginning and subtasks and then an end. And the task is finished when I've reached the end, when I've completed all of the subtasks. And I can see the beginning, middle, and end. So when I start a project, like this morning, I was cleaning the children's bedroom and I was like having to clean out a whole bunch of toys, get rid of things they don't play with anymore. And for me, it was like, this job is not done until I have put away all the cleaning materials, thrown everything in the trash, taken the trash out, and put everything back where it belongs. But that's not really how things work for your brain with ADHD.
No, I start off on a trail and I see where it takes me. It's like I was mentioning earlier today, we don't have a point A and a point B, although it is recommended that we do.
Meaning we people with ADHD,
yes.
right?
We know the point B, but it's the journey to get to point B that is really interesting for us. It's, you've always heard of, oh, squirrel, and your focus goes up. It's truly that. It's not like it's a squirrel and you're running off to chase a squirrel. It's always part of your end game, and you're thinking through this creativity process about, okay, my end game is that, but if I could do this now, that would help that later. And it's your brain is overreaching your task. You're overthinking it. You're trying to accommodate for it in ways that don't need to happen. You just need to put a nail in a wall. You don't have to, see if the wall's level and all that other stuff that you find interest in. But that's the thing. If you have a task and you lose interest in the task, you will find something interesting to keep yourself motivated. And that's why it's not attention deficit. It is searching for an outlet or searching for something new and exciting, that dopamine search, even in your mundane tasks. It's interesting.
Well, tell them what you said at breakfast this morning about the hardest task. Because we were talking about when you were cleaning out the doom room, which we've managed to meander away from that, which is what we were originally talking about. But you were cleaning out the doom room.
Yeah.
And so you said, I got the hardest thing done. And then?
Right. So what happens is you have this doom room and it's disorganized, and you've been meaning to get at it for a long time. Some people have a doom garage. I had one of those at one time.
We still have one of those in the old house.
It's not that bad, actually. What I had to do is I had to empty that room and then look back at that room. Now, the task was to organize the room, but for someone like me, the major task was getting the stuff out of the room. So I moved the stuff out of the room and into the bathroom. And then I went into my doom room and I looked around and I said, I'm going to need a shelf there. And I got to have a plant in the background. And I think I can put this here. So now the creativity process is there. And I go to work doing that. Now it takes a whole day for me to get the shelving, put the shelving up and everything else. Meanwhile, my doom room is now in the kids' bathroom.
In their bathtub.
Yes, in their bathtub. But I'm still on my task, right? So the next day, we stop at Home Depot. I get the things that I need to do. And I start organizing my doom room, and I start moving things back into an organized spot in the CLAB, my closet lab. And now I start moving things out of the bathroom until I get it to a point where the bathroom is functional from the perception, your eye's perception, and I'm done. Little, for me, the complication or the hardest task is over. So I got it about 95% complete. I can go on to the next hard task. Well, there was stuff still left in the bathtub, but it's no big deal to me because I can move it in about 5 minutes. So
I'm just going to put some footage right here of what it actually was, because we have a difference of opinion about what is functional and what is not. But go, carry on.
Yeah, so I move on to the next big task. And in the meantime, Amber's walking around and, she's getting frustrated that this bathtub, she wants to give our son a bath and there's stuff in the bathtub. And I feel bad. I would prefer her to say, hey, Dodo, get your crap out of the bathtub, and I'd be happy to do it. When I see her doing it, I go in panic mode, and I got it. And some people see that as too little, too late, right? You had the opportunity, and now you're going to feel my wrath and disappointment. And that's what we struggle with. It is not that we're trying to disappoint people. It really isn't. We're trying to keep ourselves in a creative mode or a something. ADHD is interesting. The task has to be interesting or challenging, or you have no interest in doing it. I could go to jail for not doing my taxes. I just have a block on that, right? So it's a chore for me to go in and get all the tax work done and everything else, and it's just like I have no interest, no desire, so I don't excel at it. But if there's something I have an interest in, I'll be top of my game, right? You name it. If I have an interest in it, I'll master it. If I don't have an interest in it, it might as well not exist, even if there were consequences of going to jail. I can't do it. I don't know why I can't do it. I want to do it. I just can't, and I don't understand why. And that's the struggle of ADHD that I have, which is trying to figure out why am I not motivated to do this task. And what threats? Why don't they even motivate me? And it's not until you get on your medication you realize how messed up you were with ADHD.
Well, and that's speaking of consequences, that was a big part of our marriage that kind of led to our separation down the road, because someone asked me this on Instagram. Actually, they were like, I had told the story of the doom room and the doom tub, and she said, I know that you say you used to see this kind of thing as selfish or inconsiderate on his part, but now that you know he has ADHD, you don't see it that way anymore. But what I don't understand is it still seems selfish to me. He still put things in your way to become your problem and didn't come back and get it. And the thing is, like, that used to really be my mindset too. Before we knew about his ADHD, before we knew the diagnosis and got the medication for it, I walked around constantly upset. My mindset was this. So you did the thing that you wanted to do, the thing that you got your space clean. And then you took all of your crap and you put it into my space where I'm living with the children. And you got to pat yourself on the back and say, job well done. And then I had to come behind you and do the mundane stuff that no one wants to do. I had to be the one to find a home for the wires and for the papers and for the kids' toys and the detritus that had all ended up in your doom room, right? And I would get really angry because I would be like, this is so inconsiderate. This is so selfish. This is so unfair. And I would do that thing where you were just describing, where rather than coming to you and saying, babe, please go pick up your shit, I would start loudly huffing and puffing,
yes,
making a much bigger fanfare over it than what was needed to let him know that I was unhappy. I have a chapter about this in my upcoming book where I talk about this whole mind reading concept where you're like, for me, I expect my mind to be read. I expect you to be doing exactly what I need you to do. And if you didn't do it, now you've let me down.
Yeah.
And so since your diagnosis, number one, I've been learning none of this is born out of selfishness or lack of consideration. It's born out of having completed your task and being unaware of what your task, how it might have an impact on my tasks. You're unaware of that.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is come to you and say, hey, genius, this situation here is harshing my day. Please come fix this. And we don't talk to each other this way, but like, to just say, hey, will you please come finish this? And he'll be like, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it used to be a fight.
Yeah, there was always, I want to please you. There's nothing I won't do for you, and you just need to ask, right? And sometimes I know that I get distracted and I don't get to it, and it's because I'm distracted and I didn't get to it. It's not because I don't care. We used to call this the absent-minded professor until there was a real name for it, right? And it is. I think that now, having been on medication and seeing how, incredibly focused I can be, I just realized how bad it must have been, right? So, undiagnosed, I was diagnosed late in life. So, as you can imagine, I had a horrible school experience. Grammar school, I excelled. But the minute I got into high school, yeah, that just doesn't interest me. I don't, okay, I'll fail. I don't care. It doesn't interest me. What interested me was mathematics and computer science, and I was top of my grade there. I was like prodigy in my high school for computer science, but don't get me to do literature or history or anything else, because it did not serve my goal, which was to be a computer science rock star. So whatever the consequences were, whether it was summer school or flunking out, it didn't matter to me. This is what I want to do. And, it's just the way my brain works. It's not that I wanted to flunk out. It's I couldn't get there. For whatever reason, I couldn't get there. They all knew I had the brains. I just didn't have the motivation. It was very, very weird. So going on ADHD medication now, I can realize, wow, my whole education would have been different.
So it ended up not being until you were well past high school. You were, you were in your late 40s? No,
it was just a few years ago.
So in your 50s?
Yeah, so I was about 50. Yeah.
So talk about what that was like. Like when you finally realized, maybe I have ADHD and I'm going to look into this. Like, just describe that process.
No, so it was my therapist at the time. We decided that we're going to work on each other separately, right?
This was during our separation.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the time wrong.
Well, it was her. She actually, as I am describing things, she said, "It sounds like you have an executive functioning problem, right?" And I said, "What does that mean? Have you ever been tested for ADHD?" And I said, "No." And that started the path.
Yeah.
And then I got diagnosed with ADHD properly. Prior to that, I had, many years ago, I had some form of depression that when I was seeing a psychiatrist for medication, we couldn't get any of the antidepressants to work for me. And I was just this wet blanket all the time. And essentially, I was lacking dopamine. And there was a link between the medication I was on for my back pain and my mood. And she found that link, and that was amazing. It's like it was tramadol. I would take a low dose of tramadol for my back pain, and my mood would turn. I would be alive again. And she would say, "Why are you in such a good mood?" I mean, what do you mean, why am I such a good mood? Then we started figuring out that every time I took it, I had a great day. So I explained that to the doctor, and the doctor looked at the mode of action of tramadol and found out that there's a dopamine link, and then that is also an ADHD link, and then that led into ADHD. So he prescribed some ADHD medication at that early stage, and it was quite expensive. It's like $400 per month, and I couldn't sustain it for long and went off of it. And then it was this therapist that says, "No, you really need to, get back on it." And that's when we explored it.
And from my perspective, the difference is enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing how different you are, even lately, as he's been waiting to get his new job, he's been kind of rationing his ADHD medicine. And I know, watching you on the days when you decide to skip your medicine, is that you're a totally different person. Not a bad guy either way. you still, all of your work in therapy just for other things that we both were having to work on in our individual therapies, you still show up in all of those great ways on the days you don't take your Adderall, but on the days that you don't have it, it's different. You can tell it's different.
Definitely. I mean, it supercharges me. ADHD is what I try to explain to people. It's an absolute superpower. I would not trade it in for anything as long as I can manage it, because it does allow. I wouldn't be in my career today if I didn't have this obsession and passion for the thing that interested me in computer science. I can run circles around a lot of people in computer science, and it's just my thing. But the journey of getting on medication has just really edged that up. It has really now made me, really effective. There's no waste of time. There's a focus on my objective, which is to invent something new and innovative. And I can get into a zone where I can crank out some really complex code in 48 hours that would normally have taken me 3 to 4 weeks. It's that crazy of a difference for me.
Well, and also when it comes to your hyper fixations and your obsession with things, I told someone this on Instagram the other day. I don't even think I told you, but someone was like, yeah, I have ADHD, I get hyper fixated, and they were asking me some questions about that, and I said, I don't actually mind Charlie's hyperfixation in a lot of ways, because my husband is very obsessed with me. And I benefit from that. But the thing is too, is that now that you've been to therapy, I used to, and I have to address this because I've talked about this on my socials before, I used to struggle with your fixation and obsession with me because it was a codependent kind.
Yeah.
And so then you went to therapy.
This is a whole podcast on codependency.
Yeah, which we're not going to get into. But you fixing the codependency through therapy, now you have a healthy fixation on me, a healthy attachment. And I benefit from that. Who wouldn't want their husband to just be absolutely obsessed in a healthy way with them, So I love that part of your ADHD.
Yeah. You're one of my obsessions, that's for sure.
Yep.
So computer science, but I would give up computer science for you. So you're the top obsession.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to pivot slightly, because one of the things that, I think part of our marriage restoration and reconciliation has really been dealing with a lot of things, dealing with inner demons, dealing with personal growth, dealing with past traumas, healing from old things, going to therapy. And part of that has been kind of exploring the ways that our brains are different. So for you, that journey has been dealing with depression and ADHD. And in my case, it's been I got diagnosed with anxiety, with extreme chronic generalized anxiety, and with some OCD. And so both of us have been going down that route. And as one of the things that we've been exploring is whether or not I have ADHD also, because the internet has been diagnosing me with ADHD for years. And I always push back on it because I'm I don't have the executive function. I don't want to call it shortcomings. I don't have the dysregulated executive function, right? And so we've been exploring this together. And Charlie last week was like, I have an idea. Let's just do an experiment. Let's give you one of my Adderall and see how you react to it. Now, this was foolish on both of our parts, because we didn't do any research about people with anxiety and how Adderall can impact people with anxiety. We didn't research the dangers of being on an SSRI and taking Adderall. We just decided to do this, and I could not recommend it more. It was the worst. So he gave me this Adderall. He's like, just take it, we'll see. I said, if I have a weird day, I'm going to be so mad at you. He was like, you're just not going to have a weird day. It's fine. It's Adderall. You're going to be really focused. I was like, okay. It's extended release. That's important. I found out later. He gives me this pill, and probably within an hour, I feel like my eyeballs are open this wide. I can't seem to even really get them closed. And I start going into a panic. So the first thing the Adderall did was shoot my anxiety into overdrive. And I dealt with that for a while. But the next thing that happened, which the internet helped me understand what was going on, because I went online and I was like, I went on all my social media platforms. I was like, somebody help. I feel like I'm on speed. Tell me what's going on. And everyone said, well, sometimes people who have anxiety, who are on SSRIs and who take an Adderall can have a paradoxical effect from the Adderall, meaning the Adderall in those people will create ADHD-like symptoms in you. Mm. And when I tell you, this was simultaneously one of the worst days of my life, but also was one of the things that I will forever be grateful for, because it gave me some insights into what your life is like. So I'm gonna address you in a minute, but to tell the story, just one. These things were happening to me all day, but the one big one that really blew my mind was that I had gone on to Instagram and to Threads, and I had posted, and Facebook. I was like, somebody help, here's what I did. I took this Adderall. When is it going to wear off? What is going on, right? So I post that out to all my different social media platforms, and then I was like, I need to get in the shower so that I can calm down. I get in the shower, I shampoo my hair. My phone is sitting on the floor outside of the shower, and I hear it bing, like I have a notification. And then I hear a bunch of notifications come in. I have anxiety, so I don't do well when I'm hearing a lot of notifications. So I reach out of the bathtub and I grab my phone, I step out of the stream of the shower, and I open up my apps and I start reading the comments that people are making. Well, then I'm like interested because, okay, this is relevant to me. People are answering my question. So I start replying to people and asking more questions. And the next thing I know, 20 minutes have gone by, and I have been standing in the shower with soap in my hair, having completely forgotten that I was in the shower. It was like I quantum leaped. I didn't understand. And so then I'm panicking, like, how much time have I lost here? And all day long that was happening. And when I got out of the shower, I came to him feeling like I was going to cry. And I just told him, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. If this is what it's like for you, just losing time like that, just completely losing sight of what your first original goal was.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about the shower, so I'm quick in the shower, 5 minutes, maybe less. And when I go in the shower and I do my business, I'll see, that grout needs to be cleaned. It's like, don't do it in the regular, do it there. I'm here, right? So I started fixing the grout.
With what?
Just with my thumbnail or whatever, trying to pick up the grout and trying to clean up I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah, that's the way it is. It's just, I can't explain it other than that.
It was a really out of control experience. And when I talked about it on social media, I talked about what a bad day I had and how hard it was experiencing all of these ADHD-like symptoms. And I had so many people commenting in the comments of those posts saying, thank you for this, because I have ADHD and I get really tired of people describing ADHD as this like quirky, funny thing. Like, oops, everyone's a little ADHD. Yeah. I'm so forgetful. I must have ADHD.
If they're saying that, they don't understand it. They don't know what it means.
Yeah, and that was...
Or they don't have it.
Right. And that was the feedback that I got. And I agree with them, because now, having had that like almost a 24-hour period, because it was extended release, of just feeling so disorganized and it's so hard to explain, because it's not the same as, like, we all will say, and I've said this to you before, like, are you sure that that's ADHD? Because everybody gets forgetful. Everybody, loses track of what they're doing and whatnot. But it's so foundationally different when you are in that headspace of just, it's not, this is what I said to you. When I'm just in my normal neurotypical headspace, I could be doing one thing. Like, say I'm making a sandwich for the kids. And then I'll be like, oh, I never responded to that email. And I will go over here and I will write this email. I'm aware of what I'm doing. I am deliberately leaving that behind and I'm coming to this email. And now I will, while I'm writing that email, I will be like, I'm supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be doing that, but I can't stop. This is what I'm doing now. But that's not ADHD, because in that moment, I'm aware of what I'm doing. And I may forget to come back to this, but that's only because, like, I've now just, my attention has gone somewhere else. that day that I was struggling with ADHD, it wasn't like I was making a deliberate choice to disconnect from this task and go to this one. It's like being let, that expression, like getting led around by the nose. That's what it felt like. Just whatever was the most pertinent thing was the thing that I was going to go to. And this could be the most important thing. And I would leave it behind because this became just more of the moment.
Yeah. So, the ADHD component in our lives, like we can look at it now and we can laugh at it now. But there's also a side of it that almost destroyed our marriage. Because ADHD, it's very common to have depression alongside of it. And when I had depression, we didn't know I had ADHD at the time. The depression was so bad that I had to maintain every ounce of energy that I had to do my job. And when I would come home, I would be almost narcoleptic, falling asleep, checking out, and it put such a strain on the marriage because it looked like I checked out of the marriage. I just didn't have anything in the tank. I had to have all my energy and every ounce of energy I can muster up to fight this depression so I can keep my job and do what I was hired to do. And then when I got home, I was useless, completely useless. And it took the wake-up call of the separation to radically find out what the hell is going on, because you don't understand. I don't want this. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to lose you. I just don't know why it's happening. It's not deliberate. That's all I knew. It wasn't deliberate.
Yeah. And in the middle of all that, I had undiagnosed anxiety, which was creating in me that my anxiety often shows up in irritability. You'd agree?
Just a little bit.
And so what was happening is, like, you see this concomitant effect, right? Where like there's one small problem, but it sort of ripples outward. So the one small problem is undiagnosed ADHD along with depression, right? And then on top of that, you've got undiagnosed anxiety. And so the ADHD and the depression are coming together and creating a situation where there are messes. There's a little bit of chaos around your ADHD. And then there is you kind of being blind to the messes, forgetting that they're there.
Yeah.
And then the next level is me on my end, looking around at all the chaos and all the mess and feeling like it's my job to clean it up because I'm seeing you sitting on the couch.
Yeah. So I checked out so you're getting pissed off.
Right. So I'm getting angry. My OCD is coming out. And now we're constantly fighting about the mess because I'm bitching at him all the time about the mess. And he's saying, what's the big deal? I'll get to it later. Right? That was our big fight all the time. You would say, why does everything have to be on your time? And I'd be like, when are things allowed to be on my time?
That's right. I remember.
Because for you were like, I'm going to get back to that. I'm coming back to that. And I would be like, but you're on the couch and I'm in the kitchen where the mess is and I'm trying to cook dinner.
Yeah. And that's, we should have another podcast on just sharing our needs to one another, right? Because that's been another big help. There's another aspect of ADHD that we should cover, which is, and you're going to relate with it, because what happens is when I am on the phone and I'm trying to concentrate and give my attention to the person on the phone, any background noise overstimulates me and I am useless. Because I can't switch. I can't switch my focus unless it's an emergency or a fire and I could say, hey, I got an emergency, and I can deal with it. I can't handle that dichotic listening between two things going on at the same time. And it puts me in such an incredible anxiety phase and overstimulates me, stresses me out beyond what I could ever imagine. And that is where your sensory overload kind of relates, right? Because you have the same thing, but it's not ADHD related.
Right. And we talk about this a lot. So this is a really fascinating thing that was just clicking for me while you were saying this, which is that your ADHD creates chaos and uncertainty of the mind, right? Like chaos around what your goals and sub-goals and tasks and sub-tasks are. And that can lead to anxiety. And in my case, I have anxiety, and the anxiety and the intrusive thoughts and the worry and the upset leads to, in me, some ADHD like behaviors, right? Because I'm getting scatterbrained because I'm trying to focus on something, but I'm having intrusive thoughts that are crowding everything else out. And so often it's like he's got ADHD and not anxiety, but a lot of times his ADHD looks like anxiety.
Sure.
I have anxiety and not ADHD, but a lot of times my anxiety appears like ADHD.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I could be thinking about a topic, and it's not like I have one brain that is thinking about a topic. What happens is I bifurcate that into like 6 different paths
Yeah.
simultaneously. And well, maybe they're one at a time, but there are 6 different paths. I'm going down a rabbit hole until I can't go any further. Then I go down this rabbit hole, and the brain is never stopping. It doesn't stop. And that's why you don't sleep when you have ADHD, because you can't shut your brain off. So then the other side of ADHD is that you need a nighttime sleep aid, some sort of medication to help you go to sleep, because without it, I can just go, I'll be a zombie, walking around as a zombie because I don't sleep.
I've seen you do that too. Like I'll wake up multiple times in the night and you're just sitting up in bed researching something or writing code, or and even we still, I'm working on this. This is some growth work that I have to do, but I will still, like, sometimes I'll be having a conversation with you and I'll say something and you will break eye contact and you'll start looking the other direction, and I
do that all the time.
I'll end up saying, okay, I can tell you're not listening to me anymore. I'm going to go. And he'll say, no, I am listening.
Yeah.
But your other brain, like you said, you've got one brain that's listening to me and another brain is solving a problem that I didn't ask you to solve, but
Right.
that I brought up.
That's right. So it's not that I'm listening, I am living it and I'm solving it. Like I'm hearing it and I'm running off on all the what if scenarios, coming up with a conclusion as to what's going on here, so I can give you that little piece of that nugget of information that I think is imperative. Whether it is, a relationship, a business, social, it doesn't matter. If there is a challenge for the brain at the moment that you triggered, I'm going off and solving that challenge, and you're going to stay right there until I get back. I am deeply into the conversation, right? I'm not thinking about, going to the swimming pool while you're having a conversation. And I'm not thinking about the code that I have to do for work while we're in a conversation. I'm thinking about all the implications, the social, the dynamic, the political, the everything. I'm going down all these rabbit holes, and it's terrible to live like that, but it's just the way the brain works.
Well, it's interesting because I saw a post somewhere that said, I can either give you maintained eye contact or I can give you my full attention, but I cannot give you both. And that's my ADHD. And I think about that a lot now, because for me, like when we're talking like this, you can be speaking, I'm looking at you in your eyes, and my brain is doing the same thing your brain does when you look off. But I can look at you and my brain can be doing something else while I'm actively engaged with you like this, right? And even I won't pause. Like when you're done talking, I won't sit and like gather my thoughts and think about what I want to say, because I have something loaded up already, like something in the queue, and I'll start speaking and I know that the rest of it is going to form while I'm speaking to you. And I feel like that is a very good example of a neurotypical brain, of being like, we all are processing our own thoughts while we're listening to someone else. But I think a neurotypical brain is able to maintain the mirage of like, I'm solely listening to you. Yeah. Whereas maybe a person with ADHD kind of struggles with that.
Yeah, I can meet a person, shake their hand, ask them their name, forget their name, ask them their name again. So what was your name again? And they'll tell me, and I will forget their name. I have to, go through this note-taking effort in order to, make me effective. So you learn these skills through life.
Like I made you the flashcards for that meeting that you went to.
That's right. But what happens is, as time goes by, you don't even remember you met the person. That's what ADHD is. It's just like, I gave my brother a car 25 years ago. I have no recollection of it whatsoever.
A car?
A car. I gave him a car. I gave him my used car, and I don't remember. He said, "Yeah, you gave me that car." I gave you a car. Yes, I did.
and I think a thing that's interesting, and this goes back to something that we used to talk about a lot, which is still to this day, my first response to that is to say, well, everyone does that. Like everyone meets someone and forgets their name, the other person's name, not their own name. But I feel like there's a difference, and I don't know if neurotypical people can really put their finger on what that difference is. So, like, what would you say? What is that difference?
So it's like you don't have a short-term memory. It's like something that happened a few days ago is almost completely gone from your memory if it is insignificant. If the meeting or that person does not fit your goal or does not have a importance in your objectives or the tasks, you will meet them, you will be cordial, you will even befriend them during the time you're together. But as you know, just a few days that go by, it's as if they never existed. So as an executive in a company, everybody I try to mentor in career, there are two things you got to know. You got to know what you're good at, but more importantly, you got to know what you're not good at. And I know I'm not good at executive function. I know it. So what I do is I make sure I put the people in place that are awesome at it. And I make sure they understand you cannot insult me by chasing after me 100 times to sign that stupid form. It doesn't bother me, right? And I got it, I understand it. So you train the people about your shortcomings and they will compensate for you to make you effective, right? Now, that doesn't mean I'm not working on that stuff. I still am. But I know what I'm not good at, and executive function things. Don't put me on, tasks, that have to knock down the dominoes one by one. You want an incredible cathedral built? Let me do the jazz, right? Let me bifurcate into, the drums for a second, and then, let the keys go for a second. And, and by the end of it, you're going to be like, wow, that's incredible. And that's the journey of someone with ADHD. It's not point A to point B. There's a journey there. And your executive function people keep you on point. Why are you laughing?
Because
Did I go on a journey?
Because here's where we started. I asked you, what do you think is the difference between a neurotypical person asking
there you go.
someone's name
example
and not remembering it, and a person with ADHD? And you ended up talking about building a cathedral. Yeah. So, and I don't mean to make light of it, but that was a prime example right there, which is that, like, my question was not of interest to you. And again, I think a long time ago, I would have been insulted by that. Like, okay, so what? I just asked you a question. It doesn't matter because you don't care what I'm thinking about. No, it's that I asked you a question that triggered something in your mind that you wanted to talk about, because you said off camera just a minute ago that you want to talk about this thing.
Right. That's right. It became the important thing in my head. That's right.
Yeah. And so that's where you went. And it's just fascinating. And I think I want to get back to that, because I told you at breakfast I was going to bring this up about work specifically. But like, I just want to talk for a second about the importance of, as a spouse, a neurotypical spouse of someone with ADHD, like learning their rhythm and their language, and learning that, like in this case, I can laugh about it now. We can not make light of it, but make it not an issue. I'm able to see him for what's really happening and not what I'm deciding in my mind is happening. So instead of, okay, I asked a question and, well, screw me, who cares about my question and what I want to talk about? He's going to talk about his own thing. Instead, I can laugh and I can adore him and adore the fact that this is just something about him. If I tee you up for something that you're interested in and your mind goes there, you're going to go there, and I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, my last two companies were startups, and I had co-founders that knew my ADHD well. Even though it was undiagnosed, they knew my quirks. They would call me Magoo because I would just walk around and things would happen. Everything's good, but they just, oh, Magoo. So what they would do is they would call, you got a meeting in 15. I know. Hey, did you sign that form? And what they were doing was they're trying to make sure I'm successful. And what they do is they don't lose patience, right? They, like, God bless Chris, man. Every day, don't forget you got to sign that form. I got to talk to Amber. Oh yeah, got it, Chris. Every day, the same tone, no frustration, just a friendly reminder. And where your spouse loses their shit and say, will you please move that shit away? Um, I don't upset my co-founders as much as I upset you, and you're the most important one. So um, having you understand ADHD has been a life changer.
Well, for both of us, I mean, because it's miserable. It's miserable living your life every day thinking, perceiving that your spouse is deliberately being, inconsiderate. And that's been, and I will say this, like, yes, I've come a long way in terms of changing my attitude about things, but it's also a lot easier to change your attitude about your spouse or partner's ADHD related chaos when they have been going to therapy to get tools and resources to help them with their ADHD and have gotten on medication. Because now so much of your ADHD is under control that now, like, the little things that happen, it's not like a snowball effect where it's all adding up and then eventually it's just a big huge problem for me. It's like, oh, a little ADHD thing happened, let's fix that. But because you have done so much work and honestly, I think, well, you should answer this. Was there any bit of like having to put aside an ego or anything when it came to getting the ADHD diagnosis and getting on medicine? I know there's some stigma
No,
around that.
absolute relief. Absolute relief. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Well, and she sent me a bunch of links and I looked into it and I'm like, this explains everything. Everything. Okay, so what's life going? Now, up until that point, I was leading a very successful career. I had many accomplishments in my patent filings and the companies I was working at. So I always was on my game. But anything outside of that was falling apart, right? And when I was diagnosed with ADHD, it just said to me, that explains everything. And now all I need to do is how do I fix this to have a holistic life? And that's what the medication did for me. So ADHD medication for me removed my depression. That was the key, because I was being treated for depression when I should have been treated for ADHD. When I got on my ADHD medication, my depression went away. I was happy to be alive. I'm happy to be contributing and being active and part of the family and everything. But that depression, worst thing ever. And that, I can go into the depths of how bad it was, but it was, 25 years of hell.
I think we do. We need to do a podcast about that. Both of us breaking down sort of our mental health struggles, which is a completely separate issue from that. So I do want to, before we conclude, because we've been at this for a while now, we've kind of talked about what we've done in our marriage and like in this household to sort of gain coping mechanisms and strategies for dealing with ADHD. And you've talked a little bit about the workplace, but what would you say for like people who are going into the workplace with ADHD, or are people who are managing folks with ADHD in the workplace? Like, what would you say is the thing that is needed? What?
Yeah. So two absolutely excellent questions. What we need is autonomy, freedom, and a clear objective of like, this is what we need. And how you get there is completely up to you, and they got to understand that.
So hold on, like, because some pronouns got a little messy in there. So you're saying people with ADHD need the autonomy.
They need the autonomy.
And
yes.
They need for their employers to communicate to them, here's what we need. And however you go about getting that done, we're going to give you the freedom.
We give you the trust and the freedom. You just make it happen. And that's when the ADHD superpower comes in full force. And that's why if you did some research, you will find some of the most successful business people and inventors have ADHD. It's absolutely crazy. So there is a superpower aspect to it, and especially around creativity and innovation. So yes, but I'm not the type of person that would tell my manager. I would say I wouldn't say to them, I have ADHD. This is the way you need to treat me. I would say, hey, listen, if you want the most out of me and to meet that objective, I need autonomy. That's the way I work, and you just let me do my thing, and I promise you it'll be great. When you're dealing with employees that potentially have ADHD, now you have to take a role of an executive function for them, right?
Like an external executive function.
Yeah, for them, right? And hey, did you get to that? And one of the surefire ways of just handling people with ADHD is to basically structure meetings and have conversations on each meeting, so you're not chasing, right? Because one of the things that turns off a person with ADHD or puts them in a spiral is the feeling that they're always failing, right? So if you are just touching base, just you're just checking, is there anything I can do to help you meet your objectives? Anything holding you back? And just keeping that dialogue open, that's great. But I treat my employees exactly the way I want to be treated. Give them the autonomy, right? And let them dazzle me. And once that trust is built, then you don't manage them at all. You let them go. You just say, sky's the limit for you. This is what I need. Go do it.
And that's for like all employees, but it's especially important in people with ADHD.
Yeah. I mean, so one thing I pride myself on is leadership. I have people from 20 plus years ago reaching out to me, thanking me for things I don't even remember I did for them. But it's that stuff, and I think I did it through empathy, right? I think I just did it not because I'm a special person or I knew how to do it. I just think I treated people the way I needed to be treated.
You knew for me to operate at my best, this is what I need. So therefore, I need to give that to everyone else. And what's hard is that some people don't operate well, like in that structure. Some people are like, I need to be led. I need to be told what to do. And you and I have talked about this before, just in our own businesses, of like how hard it is to kind of find that balance, which that's a whole other topic too. But like, it makes a lot of sense that you feel like I'm going to lead this way because this is what I know I need.
Yeah. And as a person with ADHD, you got to know as soon as possible that you have it, so that you're adopting a career that exploits it, right? You don't want to be in a career that is so rigid in time to show up and time to leave and time for meetings and time for this. And now you have to, because that's not the way we work. Although we're trained to set up this structure for us, it is not natural. So if you want to be natural in achieving with ADHD, you find something that, really takes advantage of it, like inventing or art or creativity or, this thought process. You could be a genius in music and so much. It could be your passion. It could be rocket science. It could be anything, as long as there's the creativity and freedom in it, and then you're off.
Well, I think, have we kind of talked on all the things you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I have. There's so much more, but the implications of the ADHD is going to be a good podcast, right? What it could do to marriages is important for me to get people to understand.
So let us know if y'all would like to see kind of a follow-up to this and talk about a little bit more about how we've navigated it in our marriage and things like that. This isn't going to be, just so you know, this isn't going to be an ADHD channel. Like, this is just one thing. This page, this channel is going to be about marriage, motherhood, and mental health. And this is one of those things that kind of touches all of those, because whether it's neurodivergence or mental health issues, those will touch on your marriage, on the way you're raising your children, on the way you're handling your career, and all that stuff. So let us know in the comments if you want to see just a follow-up on this as it pertains to our marriage. But Charlie, I'm glad that you joined. I'm very much looking forward to editing this and seeing how many times you have your, your microphone.
I'm a novice here.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. We usually have kid coverage once a month.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll look forward to seeing Charlie on the channel once a month. I'm drinking coffee. He's having wine. Love you. Mean it always. Mwah. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.